Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the most insidious and destructive processes that can occur in the human body, and its impact on the brain is often underestimated until the damage becomes severe. Unlike acute inflammation, which is a healthy, short-term response to injury or infection, chronic inflammation is silent, persistent, and systemic. It smolders quietly through the bloodstream for years, sometimes decades, slowly eroding cellular integrity and weakening the very systems meant to protect the brain. When inflammation becomes chronic, the immune system no longer turns off properly. Instead, it continues to release pro-inflammatory cytokines and free radicals that penetrate the blood-brain barrier. Once inside, these compounds trigger microglial overactivation, the brain's own immune response, which leads to oxidative stress, reduced synaptic communication, and progressive deterioration of memory circuits. The early warning signs are often subtle: constant fatigue despite adequate rest, joint stiffness without clear injury, slow recovery from minor illnesses, and a vague sense of mental dullness. These symptoms are easy to dismiss, but they are the body's early distress signals that inflammation is already affecting neural metabolism. The brain, though protected by the skull and its barrier systems, is far from immune to inflammatory stress. In fact, it is one of the organs most sensitive to even mild systemic inflammation. When cytokines like IL-1 beta, IL-6, and TNF-alpha become chronically elevated, they interfere with the production of neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin, undermining motivation, focus, and emotional stability. Over time, the hippocampus, the region responsible for forming new memories, begins to shrink, while white matter pathways that connect different regions of the brain become damaged. The result is not only forgetfulness, but a deep and persistent mental fatigue, as if one's mind has lost its sharpness and resilience. The danger of chronic low-grade inflammation lies in its slow, stealthy nature. Unlike infections or injuries that cause obvious symptoms, this form of inflammation quietly chips away at health, day by day. It often begins in the gut, where poor diet, stress, and toxins disrupt the intestinal microbiome, allowing bacterial fragments to leak into the bloodstream. This process, known as leaky gut, floods the body with inflammatory molecules that circulate continuously, keeping the immune system in a state of permanent alarm. From there, inflammation spreads to blood vessels, the liver, and eventually the brain. Once neuroinflammation takes hold, neurons are placed under constant oxidative stress, and their mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses that supply cellular energy, become less efficient. This leads to reduced ADP production, slower thinking, poor memory consolidation, and emotional instability. The brain, deprived of both energy and balance, begins to age prematurely. One of the most alarming aspects of this process is that it directly accelerates cognitive decline and increases the risk of dementia. Chronic inflammation has been identified as a central mechanism in the development of Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative disorders. The same inflammatory molecules that damage arteries and joints also contribute to the accumulation of beta-amyloid plaques and tau tangles in the brain. These toxic proteins disrupt neural communication and ultimately kill brain cells. Even in younger adults, long-term inflammation correlates with reduced brain volume, lower mental processing speed, and impaired executive function. In essence, chronic inflammation acts as a slow, invisible poison that quietly dismantles the brain's architecture while leaving the person physically intact for years. The emotional consequences are just as profound. Neuroinflammation disrupts the chemical balance that supports stable mood and cognitive control. As inflammatory cytokines rise, serotonin levels fall, leading to depressive symptoms, anxiety, and irritability. Dopamine signaling becomes impaired, reducing motivation and pleasure. This biochemical imbalance can create a vicious cycle. Stress and poor sleep further raise inflammation, while inflammation itself increases psychological stress and fatigue. Over time, this cycle erodes mental clarity and emotional resilience. People caught in this state often feel as though they are mentally slowed down or detached from their former selves. Their capacity for focus, empathy, and creativity diminishes, not from lack of effort, but because their neural networks are literally being degraded by inflammation. Physically, chronic inflammation manifests in ways that seem minor but are deeply telling: morning stiffness, aching muscles, low-grade fevers, or frequent infections. Recovery from exercise or illness becomes slower, and the body begins to feel heavy, as though burdened by an unseen weight. What's often missed is that these systemic symptoms mirror what's happening in the brain, cells struggling to repair themselves in an environment flooded with inflammatory signals. Over time, even small stresses can trigger exaggerated immune responses, depleting energy reserves and accelerating wear on tissues. This ongoing cellular battle consumes antioxidants faster than the body can replace them, leading to further oxidative damage and faster aging. Modern life fuels this chronic inflammatory state in almost every way. Diets high in refined sugars, processed fats, and chemical additives keep the immune system overactivated. Sedentary lifestyles reduce circulation and metabolic efficiency, while chronic stress floods the bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline, hormones that, when persistent, suppress immune regulation and promote inflammation. Sleep deprivation, environmental toxins, and air pollution add further layers of oxidative stress. The combination of these factors creates a toxic internal environment where the body is constantly in repair mode but never truly heals. This constant background fire may not produce immediate pain, but it silently undermines the foundations of long-term health, particularly the brain's ability to think clearly and recover from daily strain. Ignoring these signals allows the inflammatory process to become self-perpetuating. Once chronic inflammation establishes itself, it rarely resolves without deliberate intervention. The immune system becomes hypersensitive, reacting even to minor triggers as though under siege. The damage is cumulative. Neurons die slowly, glial cells become overworked, and the brain's natural detoxification systems, such as the glymphatic network, become clogged. Without active steps to reverse it, the result is a gradual decline in cognitive capacity, emotional regulation, and physical vitality. To combat this threat, a comprehensive strategy is essential, beginning with anti-inflammatory nutrition. Fatty fish like salmon and sardines provide omega-3 fatty acids that calm immune activity and repair neuronal membranes. Leafy greens such as kale and spinach supply antioxidants and phytonutrients that neutralize free radicals. Berries, especially blueberries and blackberries, contain anthocyanins that cross the blood-brain barrier to reduce oxidative stress directly within neural tissue. Turmeric, rich in curcumin, is one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatories known, capable of suppressing microglial overactivation and protecting brain cells from cytokine damage. Replacing refined carbohydrates and processed oils with whole grains, olive oil, nuts, and seeds restores balance to the body's inflammatory signaling. Beyond diet, lifestyle plays a decisive role in modulating inflammation. Regular physical activity, even at moderate intensity, lowers inflammatory markers by improving insulin sensitivity and circulation. Adequate sleep, deep, consistent, and undisturbed, is essential as the brain clears out inflammatory waste and repairs itself primarily during rest. Stress management is equally vital. Mindfulness, deep breathing, and time spent in nature all reduce cortisol and reset immune balance. Chronic stress, if left unchecked, can undo even the best diet, keeping the body trapped in an inflammatory loop that prevents recovery. Still, even with these measures, the battle against chronic inflammation requires constant vigilance. The process rarely reverses quickly. It demands months or even years of consistent effort. During this time, lapses into poor diet, overwork, or chronic stress can easily reignite the inflammatory cycle. For individuals already showing signs of persistent fatigue, brain fog, or slow healing, professional evaluation may be necessary. Blood markers such as C-reactive protein, CRP, homocysteine, and interleukin levels can help detect ongoing inflammation before it causes irreversible harm. The greatest danger of chronic low-grade inflammation is that it allows the illusion of normalcy. One can appear healthy while their brain slowly weakens, their memory dulls, and their resilience fades. It is a condition that erodes from within, trading future clarity and vitality for the comfort of present neglect. Every skipped night of sleep, every processed meal, every ignored moment of fatigue feeds the slow fire that consumes both body and mind. Recognizing and responding to this threat early is not simply a matter of feeling better. It is an act of preservation, a defense against the quiet decay of one's own consciousness. Chronic inflammation is not merely a symptom of aging or lifestyle. It is a warning that the body's harmony has been broken. The sooner it is addressed, the greater the chance of restoring balance before the flame becomes irreversible.